Someone has to tell me, why is this guy always in the doghouse with the online hall monitors of righteousness? It is a phenomenon that truly fascinates me, that every couple years, Matt Damon, one of the most likable guys in Hollywood with impeccable liberal credentials, is again flailing around in cancel culture quicksand. There are too many people in this country who are motivated not by what they really believe, but by what will get Twitter to react to them with likes and retweets. That's called bad faith. It's why every couple of years I'm reading headlines like USA Today, I wish I could cancel Matt Damon. Washington Post, Matt Damon has more Damon-splaining to do. Daily Beast, shut up, Matt Damon. Vox, Matt Damon isn't a terrible person, he's just ignorant.
This whole thing is starting to feel like a recurring show. Every few years, Matt Damon ends up in the crosshairs of online scolds, followed by fresh outrage and loud headlines. And it's always the same Matt Damon, widely liked, openly progressive, and hardly a villain. Yet, he keeps getting dragged into waves of cancellation while the internet demands apologies. What's interesting isn't just that it happens, but why? There's never real harm involved. No violence, no cruelty. It's usually about tone, timing, or saying something that doesn't perfectly match what the outrage machine expects. Bill Maher has pointed this out clearly. Much of this anger isn't driven by real belief, but by the chase for likes, shares, and public approval. That's how we end up with dramatic headlines calling for Matt Damon's downfall. He's told to explain himself, then told to be quiet, then labeled as awful. But he's not a bad person, just someone who didn't have every detail right. And somehow that's enough to start the cycle all over again.
There are too many people in this country who are motivated not by what they really believe, but by what will get Twitter to react to them with likes and retweets. That's called bad faith. It's why every couple of years I'm reading headlines like USA Today, I wish I could cancel Matt Damon. Washington Post, Matt Damon has more Damon-splaining to do. Daily Beast, shut up, Matt Damon. Vox, Matt Damon isn't a terrible person, he's just ignorant. Really? That bad, is he? We're talking about Matt Damon? I don't know, he's got a clean water charity and delivers food to Haiti. What have you done, Vox headline writer?
Seriously, we're talking about Matt Damon here. The guy who runs a clean water charity, helps feed people in Haiti, and quietly donates millions without turning it into a publicity stunt. Yet somehow, people furiously typing on their laptops insist he's the problem. That's the real issue. Many of the folks behind those angry headlines don't even believe what they're pushing. Context, truth, and nuance don't matter to them. Participation does. Outrage gets attention. Calm honesty doesn't. Fairness isn't trendy, but tearing someone down plays perfectly to the algorithm. That's why you rarely hear about Damon's good deeds. Kindness doesn't go viral. Instead, harmless moments are twisted into scandals, and suddenly he's painted as the villain again. Bill Maher highlighted this perfectly. Damon once realized a term he used was hurtful and stopped using it. Not because he was attacked online, but because he thought about it and chose to do better. No mob required. Think about that.
It's not always meant as a slur, but it's wrong, yes, of course. And Damon owned up, saying that while coming of age in Boston in the 70s and 80s, that word was thrown around without any thought put into it. And now he's put some thought into it, and he's going to stop using it. One might say he became woke. Okay, he was late to the party, to which we could say, welcome, glad you could make it. Or we could say, you came later than I did, die.
No audience, no publicity push, no anger storm, just someone choosing to grow. You'd think that might earn a small moment of respect, right? Not even close. Instead, people still found a reason to be upset. For some, progress is never enough unless it follows the exact script they already wrote. Bill Maher points out how silly this is with sharp clarity. Damon didn't deny the past. He didn't joke it away. He simply said he grew up in Boston decades ago, later understood certain words were careless, and stopped using them. That's it. End of story. But outrage still followed. Why? Because intention doesn't matter. Growth doesn't matter. Even apologizing isn't enough unless it's loud, instant, and perfectly performed. This isn't really about moving forward. It's about control. And it's not even Damon's first time in this spot. His list of so-called offenses is long. Remember Project Greenlight? He suggested choosing a filmmaker based on merit. That alone was treated as a scandal, as if valuing skill is somehow unfair. In today's upside-down culture, even common sense can be framed as wrongdoing.
And yet he is always getting pulled over by the woke police for something. He's got a woke rap sheet as long as your arm. On the reboot of the Project Greenlight series, he was booked on obstruction of social justice for maintaining that a director should be chosen on merit first. But merit first is not synonymous with racism. Thinking that it is, that's kind of racist.
Ironically, the backlash itself borders on prejudice. This never should have been controversial. Great movies come from talent, skill, and creative vision. That's filmmaking, not a political argument. But in a culture driven by anger, basic logic doesn't last long. Damon's practical comments were twisted into something sinister by critics looking for a fight. Then came 2015, when Damon was essentially punished online for saying actors often do better when they keep their private lives private. He wasn't attacking anyone or asking people to hide who they are. His point was simple: when audiences aren't constantly reminded of the celebrity behind a role, it's easier to believe the character. That's clearly true. We know very little about Daniel Day-Lewis outside his films, and that mystery helps his performances feel real. Somehow, this calm observation was reframed as something ugly, as if Damon was saying things he never actually said. In the outrage first world, even thoughtful ideas can be bent into scandals.
In 2015, Damon did hard time in Twitter jail on 2 counts of accessory to homophobia for saying that actors do well when they keep their private lives private so that audiences can watch the character on the screen without thinking about the caricature from the tabloids. And that includes your sexuality, which is true. One of the reasons I love Daniel Day-Lewis is I'm not sure he even exists off screen. But in Wokeville, somehow that became gay actors should go back in the closet, which is not what he said. But the verdict was in, and he was sentenced to appear on Ellen.
Which, of course, isn't what Damon said at all, not even close. But facts didn't matter by then. The verdict was already locked in. The ritual followed: say sorry, do it publicly, preferably on daytime TV. Then came 2016 and the Great Wall controversy. Damon was accused of whitewashing for starring in a Chinese-produced film made for a Chinese audience, funded by Chinese studios that intentionally cast a Western star to help sell the movie overseas. That isn't whitewashing, it's marketing. Films around the world have worked this way for decades. Still, none of that mattered. Context was tossed aside, and Damon's face became fuel for the outrage machine once again.
But here's how unhomophobic Matt Damon is. He Liberace. 2016, the movie The Great Wall opened, and Damon was brought up on charges of whitewashing in the 3rd degree. Whitewashing being when filmmakers cast white actors for parts meant for people of color, which is exactly what he was not doing. His role was never meant for a Chinese actor. In fact, it was a Chinese-made movie targeted primarily to the Chinese audience that was purposefully using his white so the movie would have crossover appeal here. Nevertheless, when I heard about this, I immediately replaced Matt's poster over my bed with Chris Evans.
Then came early 2017 during the rise of the Me Too movement, when Damon made what turned out to be his biggest mistake. He spoke carefully. He praised Me Too as an important moment, but also pointed out that different kinds of misconduct exist and shouldn't all be treated the same. That may be uncomfortable to hear, but it's reasonable from moral, legal, and logical angles. None of that mattered. The crowd didn't want thoughtfulness. They wanted noise. They didn't want Damon to reflect. They wanted him to shout. In outrage culture, calm is treated like guilt, and balance looks like betrayal. If you don't yell along loudly enough, you become the next target.
2017, in the early days of the Me Too movement, Damon was locked up in Wokatraz on a charge of aggravated mansplaining during a reckoning and was sentenced to not less than 1 year of having to See, what happened was, during an interview where Damon called the Me Too movement wonderful and a watershed moment, He added that sexual misconduct involved a spectrum of behavior and that there was a difference between patting someone on the true, undeniable, and unforgivable. Even though the legal system has always differentiated degrees for crimes, even murder. Oh, Matt, always getting in trouble for saying perfectly reasonable.
Now Damon has broken what might as well be called Liam's Law, the unspoken rule that says you're not allowed to admit you weren't perfect from day one. It's the same rule that went after Liam Neeson for talking honestly about confronting and rejecting racist thoughts from his past. In this system, growth is not allowed. Reflection is treated like a crime. Change is unacceptable. If you weren't fully enlightened the moment you were born, you're marked forever. There's no credit for learning, no room for improvement, just a lifetime sentence handed down by people who insist they were flawless all along.
Now he's done it again by breaking Liam's Law. Yes, that's the law that refers to the time a few years back when actor Liam Neeson recounted a story of personal growth involving racist thoughts he had as a young man, but then realizing the error of his ways, expunging the racist element from his anger. But of course, in so doing, he committed the cardinal sin of admitting he was not born perfect and did not emerge from the womb completely enlightened like Buddha. And now Matt's done it with his gay slur admission. Committed the crime of not always being the person you would become.
This is the real problem. Perfection is the expectation. There's no room for background, no space for learning, and no credit for getting better. One mistake, one outdated comment, and you're frozen at your worst moment forever. But who actually meets that standard? No one. Not you, not me, not even the loudest voices online. Bill Maher connects this mindset to politics with a clear example. Kevin McCarthy joking about Nancy Pelosi handing him the gavel. Everyone knew it was a metaphor. Everyone knew it was a joke. Still, it was twisted into something ugly because outrage has become a belief system of its own. Why does that happen? Because anger sells. And that's where we are now. Logic takes a backseat, context gets ignored, and intent doesn't matter. Whether it's a politician, Matt Damon, or anyone else, the goal isn't understanding, it's punishment.
You know, I'm so tired of bad faith arguments, and it's all we do now on both sides of our divide. 2 weeks ago, Nancy Pelosi called Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy a moron. Oh, that's not the bad faith part of the story, that's the true part. But a few days later, McCarthy was speaking to a group of Republicans and said, jokingly, but he is Kevin McCarthy, he said that if Republicans took the House in 2022, quote, "I want you to watch Nancy Pelosi hand me that gavel. It will be hard not to hit her with it." Pelosi's office called it a threat of violence. Hakeem Jeffries said violence against women is no laughing matter. And Eric Swalwell said McCarthy was a would-be assailant who must resign.
Bill Maher uses one harsh reality to cut through the fluff. Everyone eventually becomes a target when progress is neglected and perfection is pursued. Jokes turn into crimes. Nuance leads to heresy. It becomes offensive to use common sense. Nothing is produced by this civilization. It just makes folks feel depressed. And the indignation machine will continue to eat itself until that changes. It doesn't matter if you are an ally or an enemy. Here are some tips for you, Matt. Give up looking for compassion. There won't be much of it on Earth. Perhaps it's time for the rest of us to value progress once more and cease rewarding dishonesty.
This is what bad faith is. You don't really think it was a threat of violence, or that anyone thinks such violence would be a laughing matter, or that Kevin McCarthy is a would-be assailant, any more than anyone thinks Matt Damon's a homophobe. And Matt, my advice to you, stop hunting for goodwill. You're not going to find much in this country.
If you've made it this far, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps shape future videos like this. Are you as tired of the outrage machine as I am? I'll see you in the next one.